of the 2018 FIBA Women's World Cup Final.
Final game.
This kid, Angel Reese, has something about her.
Her personality, contagious.
Do you have a passion for basketball? Today, we're diving into the WNBA, the Women's National Basketball Association. Caitlin Clark, the WNBA rookie sensation, has shattered the league's record with an astounding 19 assists. To clarify, this isn't just a rookie record. It's the highest number of assists ever recorded in a WNBA game. This remarkable achievement happened during an 88-80 loss by the Fever to the Wings last night. Clark also set a franchise rookie record for assists in a single season, as the Indiana Fever defeated Diana Taurasi and the Phoenix Mercury 88-82 on Sunday afternoon in Arizona. For sports enthusiasts, it's no surprise that the industry is often full of drama, and the WNBA is no exception. Caitlin Clark, the phenomenal rookie from the Indiana Fever, recently made a play that left legends like Diana Taurasi and Angel Reese in awe. In a nail-biting game, Caitlin not only demonstrated her extraordinary talent, but also unleashed a secret move that turned the tide of the match. But what exactly did Caitlin do that left two of the game's biggest stars speechless? And how are the fans reacting? In this episode, we will explain more information. Before we get started, please like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content. Also, check out the next video on your screen. You might like it. They say the best point guards focus more on setting up their teammates than on their own scoring. And after that 19-assist performance, it's clear you play with that mindset. So, which do you enjoy more, assisting your teammates or putting points on the board yourself? Caitlin Clark versus Diana Taurasi and Angel Reese. Before we delve into the rivalry among these three exceptional basketball players, it's important to first look at their journeys and what made them stand out in the WNBA. Caitlin Clark is a rising star who garnered national attention during her college career at the University of Iowa. Born on January 22, 2002, she quickly became one of the most talked-about players in college basketball, thanks to her scoring prowess and overall performance. She shattered numerous records and became the NCAA Division I all-time leading scorer, an extraordinary feat for someone so young. As the University of Iowa guard, Caitlin Clark has been breaking records and captivating fans nationwide, and now she's ready to elevate her game even further. Diana Taurasi, born on June 11, 1982, is a seasoned veteran in the WNBA. Widely regarded as one of the greatest players in women's basketball history, Diana played college basketball at the University of Connecticut before joining the WNBA in 2004 as the Phoenix Mercury's top draft pick. Throughout her career, she has secured multiple championships and MVP awards, solidifying her legacy in the sport. Just last night, the Phoenix Mercury's Diana Taurasi became the first player to score 10,000 career points, a monumental achievement, as reported by Channel 3's Ashen Martinez. In contrast, Angel Reese is another young, promising talent. Born on May 6, 2002, she played college basketball at the University of Maryland before being drafted by the Chicago Sky. Reese is recognized for her strong presence on the court and has been a key player for her team since entering the WNBA. The rivalry between these players and their teams began to emerge around 2023 and 2024, as Caitlin Clark made her transition from college basketball to the WNBA. Caitlin was drafted by the Indiana Fever in the 2024 WNBA draft. Caitlin Clark Fever had swept through women's college basketball that season, and the Iowa star was expected to be picked by the Indiana Fever that Monday. The anticipation for this draft pick was creating a significant economic boost for the city. Her entry into the league was highly anticipated due to her outstanding college career. During the early part of the 2024 WNBA season, Caitlin Clark quickly established herself as one of the top rookies. She regularly competed for the top spot in the CBS Sports WNBA rookie rankings, often vying with Angel Reese from the Chicago Sky. Despite the challenges, Caitlin's performance was remarkable, and she became one of the most closely watched rookies in the league. But is there a rivalry between Caitlin and Angel? The answer is no. Although Angel often competes with Caitlin for rookie accolades and attention, the race for WNBA Rookie of the Year is primarily a contest between these two. As the Olympic break approaches, Caitlin Clark is the frontrunner, with Angel Reese close behind in the odds. However, the real rivalry lies between Diana and Caitlin. In 2024, Angel and Caitlin have been in a healthy competition for rookie honors. For example, the Indiana Fever has recently struggled, losing 8 of their first 10 games. Despite this, Caitlin's individual performance has been impressive, averaging 16.3 points, 6.6 assists, and 5.4 rebounds through her first 18 games. In her first month in the WNBA, Iowa native Caitlin Clark was named the league's Rookie of the Month. Clark has led all rookies in points and assists per game, as well as 3-pointers made. Of course, it hasn't been a perfect start. Meanwhile, Diana, at 42 years old, continues to be a formidable presence for the Phoenix Mercury. Despite her team facing its own set of challenges, Caitlin Clark recently garnered an impressive number of votes, finishing just behind A'ja Wilson, a 2-time league MVP. Caitlin secured 26,420 votes, only slightly fewer than Wilson's 27,773 votes. This outcome was significant for a rookie like Caitlin, showcasing her tremendous popularity and the strong support she has from fans. Initially, it all seemed like typical sports rivalry until April 2024, when Diana Taurasi made some comments about Caitlin's transition from college to the WNBA. Diana noted that the transition isn't easy and requires time to adjust. While some interpreted these remarks as criticism of Caitlin, Diana, who has navigated a similar path herself, was simply sharing her own experience. On June 26, 2024, during a practice session with her team, the Phoenix Mercury, Diana was asked about her upcoming first matchup against Caitlin Clark. Her response was blunt: "Yeah, it'll be fun." She quickly moved on to other questions. This brief, straightforward reply sparked conversation among fans and the media, highlighting Diana's no-nonsense attitude and competitive spirit. Caitlin Clark's high vote count led to a surge of reactions on social media. Fans flocked to various platforms to share their thoughts. Now we're joined by Indiana Fever guard Caitlin Clark, fresh from her first All-Star appearance in Phoenix. Caitlin, you've always been a huge fan of the league, and it's no surprise that many of these reactions included roasting Diana Taurasi. The basis for this roasting can be traced back to Diana's comments. Supporters of Caitlin Clark viewed the All-Star voting results as a validation of her talent and popularity. They seized the moment to mock Diana, suggesting her earlier comments were misplaced. Social media buzzed with memes, jokes, and posts poking fun at Diana. Caitlin Clark even shared a laugh with rival Diana Taurasi on the court, despite the veteran's tough comments. Fans joked that finally, a new superstar rookie like Caitlin was emerging. Some created graphics comparing Caitlin's and Diana's vote counts, highlighting the rookie's impressive performance. Others referenced Diana's age and lengthy career, hinting that a new generation of players, led by Caitlin, is taking over the league. The media and fans eagerly awaited Caitlin's face-off with Diana. The anticipation was about more than just the game itself. It symbolized the potential passing of the torch from a legendary player to a rising star. Diana's brief response only added to the excitement surrounding the matchup. Known for her competitive nature and direct approach, Diana's bluntness was true to her character. It showed she was ready for the game and not overly caught up in the hype. For Diana, every game is a chance to compete and give her all, no matter the opponent. Caitlin, fully aware of the obstacles she faced, took Diana's remarks in stride. She knew that transitioning to the WNBA wouldn't be easy, but she was determined to prove herself. When others couldn't handle her, Diana Taurasi decided to challenge Caitlin Clark, but just wait and see what happens next. Caitlin Clark has been making waves in the WNBA, even as a rookie. She has displayed remarkable composure and determination in the face of tough challenges and critical comments from WNBA superstars and younger players alike. Caitlin's focus has remained on improving her game and supporting her team. Her early season performance made it clear that she could handle the pressure. So, how did Caitlin perform in the next match, especially after Diana's comments? Let us find out. Caitlin's outstanding performance following the fan-driven rivalry between her and Diana Taurasi was nothing short of remarkable. The much-anticipated showdown between Caitlin Clark and Diana Taurasi was more than just another game. It was a face-off between a seasoned legend and a rising rookie, a true test of skill and determination. When the game finally unfolded, it exceeded all expectations. Caitlin not only triumphed over Diana, but also set a new record, nearly achieving a triple-double. Once again, Caitlin Clark accomplished something extraordinary in the WNBA. In Sunday's game against the Phoenix Mercury, she came close to securing a triple-double as a rookie, an unprecedented feat in the league's history. The Indiana Fever emerged victorious, defeating the Phoenix Mercury 88-82, but the final score was only part of the story. Caitlin Clark first broke a remarkable record by reaching 129 assists for the season, setting a new benchmark for a rookie in the Indiana Fever franchise. In this game alone, she recorded 12 assists, showcasing her comprehensive skill set as a player. Caitlin's ability to create opportunities for her teammates is truly special, and it goes far beyond just the number of assists. Caitlin Clark's exceptional performance highlighted her superb court vision and her knack for making passes that many players wouldn't even attempt. She's not just adjusting to the WNBA, she's excelling in her debut season. This achievement further proves that Caitlin Clark is here to make history, not merely to participate. With more experience under her belt, there's no limit to what she can accomplish. In the game against the Phoenix Mercury, Caitlin scored 15 points, grabbed 9 rebounds, and dished out 12 assists in 39 minutes, narrowly missing a historic triple-double. When the New York team traveled to Indiana to face the Fever, it became a landmark moment for both the Fever organization and the entire WNBA, thanks to rookie Caitlin Clark. Throughout the match, Caitlin remained calm and focused. Even when going up against a seasoned legend like Diana Taurasi, she wasn't intimidated and demonstrated that she's ready to compete at the highest level. Her performance was strong on both ends of the court. Offensively, she was a key contributor, and defensively, she excelled in controlling the game's tempo, proving she could be the leader the Fever needs, despite being a rookie. The showdown against Diana and the Mercury was a powerful statement from Caitlin, showing she's here to dominate rather than just learn the ropes. Although the Mercury started the game aggressively, leading 49-38 at halftime, the Fever remained undeterred. They surged in the third quarter, outscoring the Mercury 29-13, which shifted the momentum of the game. Caitlin was central to this comeback, orchestrating the offense and making crucial plays. The Fever maintained their momentum into the fourth quarter, scoring 21 points to the Mercury's 18. The game concluded with an 88-82 victory for the Fever, marking an impressive 11-point comeback that showcased the team's incredible resilience. Does Bible prophecy require a third temple to be built? The Bible talks about sacrifices resuming in Jerusalem, but does this mean a temple must be built there for end-time prophecy to be fulfilled? Many believe so, but what does the Bible say? For years, the Temple Institute in Jerusalem has been preparing the implements and materials needed for a third temple. In 2015, they completed an altar needed to restart sacrifices and performed a reenactment of the Passover sacrifice. In 2017, they performed a sacrifice near the Temple Mount, a controversial act that resulted in some being arrested. In 2018, they were given permission to perform a reenactment of the Passover sacrifice at the foot of the Temple Mount. This week, the Temple Institute overcame a major hurdle in their plans to build a third temple. It was something most people would not expect: cows. Why were red heifers sent to Jerusalem? The Temple Institute made the news when 5 red heifers were flown to Israel from Texas to meet the requirements for resuming temple sacrifices. These 5 unblemished red heifers, a heifer is a young female cow that has not yet calved, were supplied by a Christian group in Texas. The requirement comes from Numbers 19:2-10, where God commanded a sacrifice of this special heifer, whose ashes would be used for the water of purification, necessary to purify the priests before they could offer sacrifices. In times past, obtaining an unblemished red heifer was difficult. As a cow ages, hairs may turn white or black, causing the animal to be rejected by the rabbis as blemished. Here's the irony of the red heifers being provided by a Christian group. For the Jews, the red heifers are for the purification of the priests, so they can offer sacrifices in a future temple to prepare for what they believe will be the first coming of the Messiah. But some Christian groups believe that the third temple must be built, so it can be occupied by the man of sin, based on their reading of 2 Thessalonians 2:4. So, by providing the red heifers to the Jews, they seek to speed up end-time events. Ironically, the fulfillment they wish to hasten will be largely destructive to the Jews and the world. Though the Temple Institute represents a radical fringe group in Israeli society, many evangelical Christians support their efforts because they believe the building of a third temple is necessary to fulfill prophecy. Both groups seem to conveniently ignore that their respective views of the end times and coming of the Messiah are diametrically at odds. But does Bible prophecy require a temple to be built as a sign of Christ's return? What does the Bible say about the third temple? Will daily sacrifices be resumed in Jerusalem? After the collapse of Alexander the Great's empire, his kingdom split into 4 smaller empires under his generals, Daniel 8:8. A ruler named Antiochus Epiphanes rose to power in the Seleucid Empire. He ruled over the Jews and outlawed worship of the true God. He stopped the daily sacrifices and offered unclean sacrifices to pagan gods instead. Daniel 8:11, 12, 13, 11, 31. Jesus prophesied that this historical event would also have a future fulfillment. In the end times, a despotic ruler, king of the north, would stop the daily sacrifices again. We know from Daniel that these events will occur at the time of the end, Daniel 12:9, and that, from the time that the daily sacrifice is taken away and the abomination of desolation is set up, there shall be 1,290 days, verse 11, indicating a countdown to Jesus Christ's return. If the daily sacrifices are going to be stopped in the future, that means they must first be resumed. This is why the actions of the Temple Institute and their emboldened plans to resume sacrifices are interesting. Must a third temple be rebuilt? After the destruction of Solomon's temple, the Jews were subjected to 70 years of captivity in Babylon, Daniel 9:2, Jeremiah 29:10. Afterward, God began the process of returning them to their homeland to rebuild. Under Ezra's guidance, a group of Jews returned to Jerusalem and resumed sacrifices to God. These sacrifices were performed before work had even begun on the Second Temple, Ezra 3:1-2, 3:4, 5-6. This shows that only an altar is necessary for sacrifices to be offered. A temple is not a requirement. So why do some believe a temple must be built in Jerusalem in the end times before Jesus Christ returns? Does Ezekiel's temple describe a rebuilt temple in this age? In Ezekiel 40:48, we read about a vision of a future temple. The vision is recorded after the destruction of the first temple and before the construction of the second temple. The second temple was not a fulfillment of this vision, because it did not have the physical features described by Ezekiel. So some connect this with the prophecy of the sacrifices being stopped and conclude that there will be a temple built in Jerusalem before Christ's return. But, as we have seen, the sacrifices don't require a temple. When you study the description of Ezekiel's temple, it becomes clear that this is a structure that will be built after Jesus returns. Here are some reasons. Jerusalem will be known as the Lord is there. Ezekiel 48:35. So this temple will stand at a time when God is ruling in Jerusalem. A river will flow from the temple that will heal the land and the seas. Ezekiel 47:1, 8-9. The time setting is after God delivers Israel. Ezekiel 39:25-26, 27-28. God's Spirit will be poured out on all Israel. Ezekiel 39:29. These prophecies clearly describe a temple to be built during the millennial reign of Christ on earth, not a temple built by human beings in this age. Will the man of sin actually occupy a third Jewish temple? Does the prophecy about the man of sin in 2 Thessalonians 2:3-4 require a third temple to be built in Jerusalem? Many do see this scripture as an indication that a temple must be built in Jerusalem before Christ returns. However, though it could possibly be fulfilled by a physical temple, there is another more likely way this scripture could be fulfilled. The New Testament identifies the true Church of God, composed of believers who have God's Holy Spirit, as the spiritual temple of God, 1 Corinthians 3:16, Corinthians 6:16. In 2 Thessalonians 2:4, Paul described things that the man of sin will claim are true, but are actually false. For instance, he claims to sit as God, though he is not God. So, the reference to the temple of God could be another false claim he will make, that the church he leads is the true temple of God. However, the church he will lead will be a counterfeit of the true temple of God, the faithful church Jesus built in the first century. Interestingly, Many people have noted that the Roman Catholic Church has historically claimed to be the one true universal church and the kingdom of God on earth. It can be easy to assume a physical temple must exist for the sacrifices, but we need to be careful not to force conclusions into Scripture when other options are certainly viable. Does Bible prophecy require a third temple in this age? Some prophecy students erroneously believe a third temple must be built in Jerusalem for end-time prophecy to be fulfilled. But it's important for our readers to understand that the building of a third temple in Jerusalem before Christ's return is not necessarily a definite prophetic sign to watch for. What is essential is the reinstitution of sacrifices in Jerusalem, which requires only an altar, not a completed temple. Continue watching Jerusalem and Europe. Watch for continued efforts to reinstate sacrifices in Jerusalem and for the rise of a religious and political power in Europe that will eventually end those future sacrifices. The King of the North. Daniel wrote about the King of the North who would be involved in the Middle East prior to Christ's return. Who is this person? What will he do? In Daniel 11:40 we read of the King of the South attacking the King of the North at the time of the end. While the setting of this prophecy is quite clear, the time of the end, understanding who the kings represent is more complicated. To understand who these kings are, we need to consider the context of the extensive prophecy found in Daniel 11. The context of Daniel 11. The setting for Daniel 11, the chapter containing the most detailed prophecy in the Bible, is found in the preceding chapter. Here we are told that Daniel was given the message in the 3rd year of Cyrus king of Persia. Daniel 10:1. The Expositor's Bible Commentary edited by Frank Gabeline identifies the 3rd year of Cyrus as 535–534 BC, meaning this prophecy was given to Daniel more than 500 years before Christ's coming to earth as a human. The events prophesied began shortly after Daniel received the vision and will continue through the end time prior to the return of Christ. Also consider the words of the angel who came to help Daniel understand the vision. This messenger from God told Daniel, "Now I have come to make you understand what will happen to your people in the latter days, for the vision refers to many days yet to come." Daniel 10:14, emphasis added throughout. Not only was the prophecy going to occur quite some time in the future from when Daniel received it, it was also primarily focused on what would happen to the Jewish people, Daniel's people. Daniel 11, the King of the North and the King of the South. The first 4 verses of Daniel 11 deal with events of the Persian and Greek empires. These passages contain amazing historical details that confirm the validity of the Bible. Verse 4 is a prophecy of the division of Alexander the Great's kingdom into 4 regions following his death. In verses 5–6, we read for the first time in Daniel 11 of the King of the South and the King of the North. Since the focus of this prophecy in Daniel 11 is what would happen to the Jewish people, Daniel 10:14, the directions of south and north in this chapter must be understood in relation to Jerusalem. While the details mentioned in Daniel 11 can be hard to follow, a careful comparison of the prophecy with history makes the meaning clear. A Bible help such as the Expositor's Bible Commentary can be quite useful in sorting out the historical record that fulfilled the predictions. The Seleucids, king of the north, and the Ptolemies, king of the south. The 2 major powers that existed to the south and north of Jerusalem after the death of Alexander the Great were Egypt to the south, with its kings referred to as Ptolemy, and Syria to the north, with its kings referred to as Seleucus or Antiochus. The prophecy in Daniel 11:5–31 then documents the historical interactions between the king of the south and the king of the north. Next, this prophecy seems to include the story of the Maccabees, a Jewish family that led the resistance against Antiochus and his successors because of their efforts to force the Jewish people to accept pagan Greek practices, verses 32–39. The first fulfillment of the abomination of desolation. In 167 BC, Antiochus Epiphanes commanded that observance of the Jewish law cease and ceremonies of the Hellenistic cult be instituted. An altar of Zeus Olympios was set up upon the altar of sacrifice at Jerusalem. Sacrifice was offered there on the 25th of every month, starting with the 25th of Chislev, December, 167 BC, I Mag 154, 59, Chumek, 6 7. Since the 25th of the month was celebrated as the birthday of Epiphanes, these sacrifices were actually offered to him. Apocalyptic literature called this altar of Zeus, the abomination that makes desolate. Dan, 1131, 1211. Bo Rika, The New Testament Era, Puppy 5556. The reference to the time of the end in verse 35 is thought by some to be a reference to the time just before Christ returns. While this may be the case, we should also understand that it might simply be a reference to the close of the Maccabean time of testing. Or, of course, it may also be that this passage is dual, referring to the time of the Maccabees and beyond. Verses 35 to 39 seem to describe some actions by Antiochus during the time of the Maccabees, and they also serve as a forerunner of actions that will be taken by the beast power that will exist just before Jesus Christ's return to earth. Gap in the history of the king of the north and the king of the south? In 65 BC, the Roman Empire defeated Seleucid Syria, and in 30 BC, it also defeated Egypt. So both the king of the north and the king of south now came under Roman rule. It is also interesting to note that the detailed early part of the prophecy seems to end before the 1st century and not resume until the time of the end referred to in Daniel 11:40. Why is there a gap of approximately 2,000 years between these verses? Perhaps it is because there was no Jewish nation in the Middle East during this time. With the founding of the State of Israel in 1948, the King of the North and the King of the South once again have significance regarding the fate of Jewish people living in the Holy Land. It is important to understand that the modern State of Israel is largely comprised of Jewish people. Judah, the patriarchal father of the Jews, was one of 12 brothers whose descendants were collectively called the ancient Israelites. There are other prophecies directed toward the descendants of the other brothers. The modern nation of Israel is primarily populated by Jews, not descendants of the other brothers. The King of the North, at the time of the end. This passage tells us that the King of the North, which will likely be a revival of the Roman Empire, the fourth kingdom spoken of in Daniel 2 and 7 as well as in Revelation 17, will successfully counterattack the King of the South. At the time of the end, the King of the South shall attack him, and the King of the North shall come against him like a whirlwind, with chariots, horsemen, and with many ships. And he shall enter the countries, overwhelm them, and pass through. He shall also enter the glorious land, and many countries shall be overthrown, but these shall escape from his hand: Edom, Moab, and the prominent people of Ammon. Daniel 11:40-41. This passage tells us that the King of the North, which will likely be a revival of the Roman Empire, the fourth kingdom spoken of in Daniel 2 and 7 as well as in Revelation 17, will successfully counterattack the King of the South. Verses 41-43 indicate that in the process, he will enter the glorious land, the Holy Land, and that he will gain control over, or have power over the treasures of gold and silver, and over all the precious things of Egypt. As for the identity of the King of the South, the reign of the Ptolemaic rulers from Egypt came to an end long ago. Yet it appears that Egypt will once again either be the King of the South, or be aligned with other nations representing this power that will exist at the time of the end before Christ's return. Verse 43. Middle East conflict centered on Jerusalem. Why will the King of the South attack the King of the North to initiate this conflict at the end of the age? Perhaps it will be over economic disagreements. Perhaps it will be over the treatment of Muslims in Europe. Perhaps it will be a religious dispute because of the King of the North coming into the Middle East. Regardless of the reason or reasons why the King of the South and the King of the North fight, prophecies in the book of Zechariah explain that Jerusalem will be a focal point of conflict before Jesus Christ's return. I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling. The Venerable King James Version memorably recorded God's warning as, "Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling unto all the people round about." Zechariah 12:2. The New King James Version puts it this way: "Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of drunkenness to all the surrounding peoples, when they lay siege against Judah and Jerusalem. And it shall happen in that day that I will make Jerusalem a very heavy stone for all peoples. All who would heave it away will surely be cut in pieces, though all nations of the earth are gathered against it." Zechariah 12:2-3. The phrase, A cup of drunkenness seems to refer to the confusion, perhaps because of angry emotions or because of the complexity of the issue, that the intervening nations will be in regarding how to solve the conflict. As for Jerusalem being a very heavy stone for all peoples, this historic city is destined to be a trouble spot affecting people far beyond its borders. Those who try to heave the stone away, solve the problem, will pay a dear price for doing so. Armageddon and the final battle for Jerusalem. While contention over Jerusalem may or may not be the catalyst for the initial conflict between the king of the south and the king of the north, at the time of the end, God shows through the prophet Zechariah that eventually all nations are going to be drawn into a conflict centered in Jerusalem. After the armies of the nations gather at Armageddon, Revelation 16:16, they will set their sights on Jerusalem. God says, "Behold, the day of the Lord is coming, for I will gather all the nations to battle against Jerusalem." Zechariah 14:1-2. The King of the South. Daniel wrote about a king of the south who would play a pivotal role through history and just before Christ's return. Who is the king of the south? The phrase king of the south is found in the Bible in only one location, Daniel 11, which is also the chapter containing the most detailed prophecy in the Bible. The first mention of this ruler is found in verse 5, where we find that the king of the south shall become strong, and that his dominion shall be a great dominion. Who was this king? Who will he be in the time of the end spoken of in verse 40? To answer these questions, we need a little background information. One of the first considerations is the setting of this prophecy. Daniel received the message in the 3rd year of Cyrus king of Persia, which was 537 or 536 BC, according to the Expositor's Bible commentary, Daniel 10:1. The prophecy of Daniel 11 begins with verses 2-4, which describe what would happen in the Persian and Greek empires after Daniel was given this vision, and continues through the time of the end, verse 40. Directional designation. To understand the identity of the king of the south, we have to understand the directional designation, south, given to this king. The question is, south of what? The meaning becomes clear when we realize why this prophecy was given to Daniel. The angel that appeared to the prophet told him, "Now I have come to make you understand what will happen to your people in the latter days." For the vision refers to many days yet to come. Daniel 10:14, emphasis added throughout. The purpose of this prophecy was for Daniel and us today to know what will happen to the Jewish people, Daniel's people, after the prophet's death. Given that the prophecy is written from a Jewish perspective, directions such as south or north are given in relation to Jerusalem, the ancient capital of the kingdom of Judah. So the king of the south was located to the south of Jerusalem. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for the next video.